Hello, everyone. My name is Mats. I'm a product expert in photography here at Esoft. I've been with Esoft for the last 4 years. Before that, I had an extensive career in both graphic design and commercial photography. So I bring to the table over 30 years of industry knowledge. And today we're going to talk about one of the most popular forms of real estate photography, HDR.
So five ambient bracketed exposure shooting technique. What is that? Can you just break down that concept?
Sure, Quan. I'll give it a shot because it's quite a long,
It is really long.
long sentence, and it's it consists of many parts. So let's start with HDR.
Right.
That's high dynamic range. So it means that you have a tonal range that goes across what you normally can with just one exposure.
Right.
So you need multiple exposures to capture the different areas. So you can create a high dynamic range image.
Yeah.
And we do that by by doing different exposure values, EV values for short, and shouldn't be confused with the stops that we are using as f-stops. Photography is full of like talking about stops because we talk about f-stops, we talk about stops in terms of shutter speed.
Oh.
So it's a lot
Of stops.
of stops.
Okay. So when you shoot, how do you adjust the aperture value?
So for HDR photography,
Yeah.
the aperture value should not be adjusted throughout.
Okay.
So you normally place it either f8 or f11 because that's considered the sweet spot of the lens. And by
Okay.
sweet spot, it means that the lens design has a combination where it produces the sharpest image
Right.
possible. So if you go different ways, it will degrade the image quality. So photographers tend to stick to the sweet spot of the lens.
Yes.
And in general, it's between f8 to f11. So once you have selected your sweet spot, you don't change it.
Oh, okay. So you don't adjust it.
Yes.
Cool. So what about the shutter speed?
That's the one that you need to adjust.
Oh, okay.
So with the shutter speed, we talk about exposure values.
Yeah.
And it's often referred to EV stops. So when you come across EV plus minus 2 EV, then it means that you do increments of +2, and then the next one will be +4 from a base value.
So say you come to the shoot with like -4, -2, 0, +2, and 4 to shoot. So why do you need that 0 value? Does that do anything?
That's the 0 value is actually the most important one because that's your starting point. And to get to that starting point, you have to understand how light meters in cameras work and also how you set it up. You have different functions with cameras. You can do like a spot metering that you select the spot that you want to measure, or you can do the easy way that you just do a general average. And this is the fastest way. So basically the camera will take in all the light in the scene and make an average. And that average will then be your starting point, like ground zero, so to speak.
Okay.
And from that starting point, it will know that, okay, these are the values that we're going to start from. And then we're going to go +2 in exposure from this starting point and at +4. And also the same with negative numbers.
So now that we kind of agree that we have middle sort of exposure, which is 0, and then you have say 3, 5, 7 other exposure. So why 5 and not 3 and 7?
That's a very good question. And to help to answer that question, I need to borrow from Ansel Adams, the zone system, which is really brilliant. He invented this system for black and white photography, where zone 0 is absolutely black and zone 10 is absolutely white.
Okay.
And zone 5 is the average. So when we get our 0 reference, that's the same as zone 5 in Ansel Adams.
Zone 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the extreme, so from 5 you go extreme to +4,
Yeah.
you come to zone 9. That's almost on the border to absolutely white.
Right. Yeah.
And then you do the same with the negative, and then you come to absolutely black. And if you're shooting with a raw file, you can even push and pull a bit. So you more or less have covered the whole tonal range
Okay.
with
Yeah.
those 5 exposures.
Yeah.
So if you shoot 3, then you have to sacrifice things.
Okay.
And if you shoot more, then you just add more that you don't really need.
Oh, okay, I see. So when you shoot 5, you have enough data to process and then create more editing options, I would say. But then when you have 3, you have to compromise a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why we recommend 5, because from those 5 we can edit in any style because we have all the information.
Okay.
So
yeah.
let's say, for instance, if in the Nordics you have what we call a Scandinavian style with very blown out window details. So yes, you will not need all the 5 exposures for that, but we have that available, because if your customer came back and said, no, we don't want to have the Scandinavian style, we want to have a more natural style, and we want to bring in all the window view details because this property has a beautiful view, then if you only shoot for one style, you don't have the flexibility later to change another style.
Yeah. And then, so you say that with 5 we have enough data. Why don't we have 7?
Well, some people
that
think that we
data,
have,
right?
it's more data. We don't necessarily gain much from having those extra. And the thing is, it doesn't sound much, but real estate photographers, they shoot a lot of properties, and for real estate companies, it's normal to go through thousands of properties a year.
Okay.
And when you then start to add these little things and multiply it by the thousands, it suddenly takes much longer to upload, longer to transfer, takes up more storage space. So
there we go.
There's a reasoning behind it to make it as efficient as possible.
And I see now. So when you scale your business, say 5 is the optimal point for you to get all the data. 3 is not quite enough. But then 7, while producing enough data, requires a lot more storage and space, and that is not scalable for the business, right?
Yes, it's not optimal. So it's not optimal to have more than what you need, and it's not good to have not enough. So that's why we go for the best practice and the easiest way, and then that is to just stick to 5, and
just
everything is
enough.
Exactly.
5 just enough. Cool.
So now that we agree that 5 exposure are cool enough, do you see any other problems with other shooting techniques that can be solved or addressed with 5 ambient exposure shooting?
Sure. I can recap some of the what you can say. The main benefits with doing 5 HDR is that it's a very simple learning curve to master this.
Okay.
So the photographer can really spend time on composition to focus on getting the best camera angle, the best images out of this property.
Yeah,
and that's really the main thing. We don't want the photographers to think too much about, okay, I'm going to save a bit of storage space by doing 3 exposures, but where do I measure the light? How do I ensure that we have everything? No, the 5 exposures takes out all of that. It just can focus on composition. Then others will start introducing flash and use that to help to speed up the process and work with fewer exposures, because they compensate with having the flash to come in and to lift up the ambient levels. But that has a whole set of other issues as well, in particular the American market.
Yeah. So when editing with flash, is there another problem?
Yes, because as I said, in the American market, you have really big houses, big rooms, everything is more or less big in America, as we know.
Okay.
And then when you compare that with Australian market and in particular the European market, houses are smaller, the room sizes are smaller. So when you work with a flash, and you have to remember that earlier we talked about the sweet spot of the lens. So that means that you already are at f8 to f11, and to get enough light to illuminate the whole room
Yeah.
at an aperture level like this, it takes a lot of energy. Like the flash has to be powerful.
Okay.
So when you have a big American room, that flash will not reach across the whole room. And that is a huge problem for the editors because they work with input that is not good enough.
Yeah.
And then you can have the opposite problem in a European home because it's so small and the flash is too powerful.
Yeah.
So it just blows out the foreground and you have other issues. And then with the flash, because it's that strong, it can leave really hard flash shadows that needs to be edited out.
Okay.
So if the photographer knows how to use the flash and has a flash that is powerful enough for the room that it's working with, because when you get a really powerful flash means that they're much bigger and it's more equipment to carry and it's heavier, it slows you down.
Right.
If it's too small, it basically doesn't give the effect that it's wanted. So there are many pitfalls with this. So it really comes down to what you're shooting and your knowledge about how to use the flash.
Gotcha. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to hit the like button. Bye.